What is up, people? It is episode 4 of Cutting Through the Noise, and I've got a very exciting guest today to talk all about Agentic AI. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome the one and only Mr. Jimmy Vaughan to Cutting Through the Noise. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you, Josh. Will you be putting in applause behind the scenes here?
Maybe. This is a good moment for that. There's actually a button here in Riverside to do that live, and I always forget to push the button. So
I know. That's
it's a good moment. Jimmy Vaughan, for those of you that are not aware, is he and I go back a ways in the industry, back to some earlier days, which we're going to get to in a second there.
Yeah.
But currently at Microsoft, can you give us a little bit of info on your role there, what you're doing now? You also co-host the Selling Microsoft Teams Rooms on Fridays. Tell us about that.
Yeah. It's my role at Microsoft is very, very simple. I'm here to actually help partners, Microsoft partners, not only understand Microsoft Teams, but understand the sales motion, understand the opportunity, and understand all of the technical things that they need to do so that our customers are having the best experience on Microsoft Teams. Josh, we talk about it all the time. There is no better solution for a Teams customer than a Microsoft Teams room. And that's really seen inside of this AI era and the AI-powered workplace. So I'm here as that Microsoft person that sort of takes all of the things from Microsoft, puts them into sort of bite-sized, easy to understand, calculated solutions so that our partners aren't struggling with, well, when I go to the customer and they have this, what do I do? When they have this, what do I do?
Yeah.
All of that is bundled into solutions, and I teach people. And really on the Friday show that I co-host with Marion every week, what I found was when I got to Microsoft, I was doing like the same presentation to partner 1 on Monday, partner 2 on Tuesday, partner 3. So what we sort of said is, hey, in this day and age where we really want bite-sized things, let's just take 10 minutes every Friday and we'll go through what's new for the week on selling Microsoft Teams rooms. When I pitched it to leadership here, it was pitched as the TikTok of Teams rooms. Right? You take it every single week and you just bite-size these blogs and all of the information so that people have a place and they'll know links to click, and then they start to understand how the ecosystem, Josh, you and I have done this forever. The ecosystem of Microsoft, it's unbelievably large. It's complicated at times, but it can be so simple if you know where to go and who to ask. And that's really who I am, is that person who to go to and who to ask.
It's not that things at Microsoft are that complicated to navigate.
No.
But having someone to break that down as eloquently as you can is a smart move. It's a good move there, and genius move on the keeping it short and simple on the 10 minutes or less. Yeah. I'm hedging. Here's what I'm doing, because this show is longer, right? And I started this show in the age of scrolling. We need things in 30 seconds, or you've lost us. That's just the way things are. So here's where I'm hedging my bets. Everything is getting so AI everything that eventually there's going to be a reset where people are like, I just want to slow down and go back to the human interaction. That's my hope. Otherwise, it's going to be hours and hours of wasted video time that people never watch. But thank you for being here today to be part of this experiment with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. Anytime I can talk about the AI stuff, because I am deep into AI. I've been in AI for a significant amount of time. Before the chat GPTs, before all the different things that are there, this is really a solution and a technology that has unbelievable potential to it. And I think it's one of those things we do have to talk about it, because it's advancing faster than anybody can keep up with it.
That's exactly it. And you feel like you're going in underwater constantly with the level and speed of which it's coming out there. So when I think when a lot of people think of Jimmy Vaughan, they remember, especially in the UC space where I come out from, right, and you as well for a long time. They think of you as an expert in that Microsoft Teams rooms, the teams, the devices, etc. But knowing that they can kind of pivot into the AI section of that, and they've got someone also an expert that they can turn to there, amazingly helpful. So we'll dig into some of that today.
Good.
Before we get into our first segment, I love doing this segment, but the show and tell segment. Before we get into that, I wanted to ask about something I saw on your profile, because even though I know you well, I always dig through the LinkedIn profile before I do the show. And there was this thing on there I saw in your description, your About Me, something at sea. So, were you circumnavigated?
Semester at sea. Correct.
Semester at sea.
Correct.
That sounded phenomenal.
Josh, I tell everybody who's got kids in college or even college kids that I speak to and everything else, semester at sea was one of those experiences that it's hard to explain how unbelievably impactful it was. What it is you take a semester of college and you go on a boat. Now, when I started, it was 500 college students on a ship, and we started in Vancouver. And then
you're on the boat for the whole semester.
On the boat for the whole semester. You take courses while you're at sea. So we sailed across we started in Vancouver, we sailed across the Pacific Ocean to Japan. And you take courses while you're at sea, and then when you get to these locations, you don't have class anymore. You're free to go out and learn. You're free to take classes. They have excursions. They do things. But as a college age student, to have exposure to the world, and I did this in 1993. So you can think back to pre-internet, pre-cell phones, all of that. I mean, when I went,
you were really gone and disconnected. I was
gone and disconnected. I didn't speak. I spoke to my parents once in 6 months over a phone because we were sailing around the world, and it was just what we could accommodate and get through. But I tell everybody, look at this because it gives you the grand perspective of how large the world is and how many people there are and all the empathy that you can have for other people and other cultures and solutions. And, I tell stories when I got out of college, all of my interviews were just stories from semester at sea. I've got stories of sleeping in a Buddhist temple. I've got stories of actually climbing to the top of the pyramids in Egypt. Watching the sunrise in Russia, different things. I can tell these stories, but to be able to do that, semesteratsea.org is the place where you can sign up. It's a transfer program, so anybody at any university can use it for their cultural elective solutions and everything else. And it's a semester. Man. And like I said, I still actually have friends from there that we went around the world together. We meet every year and things like that. So it's unbelievable. But that was a fun one. That was a fun one.
Of all the times you and I have talked, we've talked about some cool stories in your background. I've not heard this come up, and I'm like, wow.
My girlfriend says you got to write a book because there are, every time she even sits down to dinner with me, there's a new thing that comes out. I've done a lot. I've been very lucky, knock on wood, and very, very exposed to a lot of different things. And that's one of the fun things that I get to talk about too.
Well, maybe you can use an agent to help you with this book and get it off the ground, right? But we can
talk about the 90s of wrestling. Yeah, I was there for all of that. Talk about all the different things, it's been a fun ride. So
that is so cool. I didn't know about this program. What a life-changing. But you're absolutely right, and I think that's a cool thing. I'm actually in my show and tell. I'm going to touch on that a bit. I think sometimes, especially in America, it can be easy to not get perspective of the rest of the globe, right? To not have an idea of what the rest of the world is like, how it operates, and where we as a country fit into the mix. Getting that perspective, being there, experiencing it, there's nothing like that. It just shapes you in a way. So and at that age, what a cool thing.
Amazing. Okay. Amazing. So I recommend it to everybody. I suggest if you've got kids that are in high school and everything else, look at the program, plan for it, make sure that it's there. To be honest with you, it actually cost me less to do that than the semester of college at the school that I went to. So
that's mind-blowing. But I can believe it. I can believe it too.
Yes.
Okay, show and tell time, my friend. What did you bring for us today?
Show and tell. So you had me, you wrote this and everything else, and I think it's timely that I show my MVP status, Josh. So I like it. One of the things that I'm most proud of, and I strove for this. You know the struggle that I had. But that's the plaque that you get when you reach MVP. There's also a statue that you add rings to and everything else. Back in the days of Link and Skype for Business and everything, there weren't as many teachers of things, but there were blogs and there were people that had notes and tips and tricks and everything else. You were one of them. You were one that when I was going through learning OCS and Link and all the different things, we all sort of helped each other. We knew as a community that we were, but MVP was the status that a lot of other people in the community had. I didn't have it. So I made a goal, and it was almost a 5-year trek. You know this. You know this.
It can be a jaunt. Yeah.
Yes, it can. It's not a short thing. It's not like I wake up and I say I want to be MVP, and there it is next day. So
Right.
One of the stories that I tell about my journey to MVP is when I started, nobody saw devices as an important part of the solution. But I was at a
Right.
company making the devices and going out and selling them and fixing Fortune 500 link implementations and Skype for Business implementations
Yeah.
because they had the bugs that we all knew.
Right, right. But it was
And
very
we could.
platform focused at that time,
That
right? To
was
your point,
it.
you didn't really think about the device side of it on the Microsoft side, at least at that point.
Correct. Correct. So when I was coming in, I got rejected more times than I'll even admit to. But the truth is, it was a goal of mine, and certain people, Ilya Bookstein, Lori Popmeyer, they all knew that it was an achievement that I needed, just for my personal sanity and self.
Yeah.
So there were so many people in the background. You, Tom, different people. Adam Jacobs and others that just sort of kept with it for me and helped me understand. All right, we can go through this. We could do this, and we could do this, and everything else. And finally achieving that was a great thing. Now, when I came to Microsoft, one of the things you have to give up your MVP. And I remember during the interview process, one of the interviewees actually said to me, "Well, you're going to have to give up your MVP when you come here." And I said, "Well, I haven't said yes yet."
Yeah. I mean,
Because you do, it's a lot of work, Josh. People might think, oh, these guys have it down to a science and it's easy to do and all these things. Everything takes time, and it's a significant amount of time that you invest for an objective that you're not sure you're ever going to get. You're doing it because you want to do it and everything there.
Right.
My side, I did it because I wanted to get there, and I wasn't going to stop, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
You're absolutely right. It is. It's a you never know, right? You never know if you're going to get it.
know.
It's a bit of a black box in that. So there's not a list of check boxes that you have to complete and then boom. You just work at it, and maybe one day, but you have no insight. So
that's my show and tell. I'm very proud of my MVP status. I talk about it outside. I talk about it at a lot of the speeches that I have. I suggest anybody that is passionate about Microsoft has that sort of inner thinking of, I tinker, I find problems. Some people come to me and they say, well, how do I even post a blog? Well, Josh, were you asked a question today about Teams? If one person's asking that question and you know the answer to it, there's a chance somebody else out there has that same question. Let's write about it and let's actually educate people about it. And that's one of the things that I use LinkedIn, my platform on LinkedIn. I share information and I find things, and I really try to go out of my way to make sure that there's a place, because if there's anything that I can do, it's helping everybody navigate, like you said, the behemoth that is Microsoft.
I don't know. Yeah, and for me, right? It was how I learned. I learned by consuming and then creating content about what I just learned, and then I would share that out.
Yeah.
But you really do have to get over what you just said. You have to get over that point of, well, how do I even do a blog or get started? So many people think, oh, this thing that I'm thinking of, that's common knowledge. People won't care about that. There are a ton of people that don't realize that's common knowledge, and they will absolutely appreciate that blog post that you think is run of the mill. So run with it, just do it.
100%.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing it. I was so excited for you, and then it felt like the very next day you went to Microsoft, and I was like,
it was kind of quick. But that has no bearing on my wanting to achieve that and because as you can see, I don't stop giving back to the community. I don't stop that. That's part of who I am. But I did in my, I always set personal goals for myself. And that was a personal goal that I had of achieving MVP status. And I'm so proud of it. I'm proud of the community that is the MVP community. And I'm happy. I'm one of the biggest cheerleaders for that whole community inside of Microsoft, helping everybody understand that we've got a whole community of people, rather the topic, Windows, Teams, whatever it is, we've got a whole community of people that this is what they do, and they love this product, and they love the excitement surrounding it, and they're happy to amplify everything that we do.
Leverage them, right?
That's it.
Yeah. That was very cool. Good show and tell. It's fun to walk back into memory lane a little bit there with that. I will, for my show and tell, I'm going to do a little bit of memory lane myself. So for those of you that maybe are have spent time around me or have just kind of watched from afar, be like, what is the deal with that guy? He seems a little off, a little bit weird. What's his background? I actually grew up my teenage years on a very small island out in the Pacific. And there's me out there. I loved going out in the boonies and making forts and building things as a kid. And that kind of led to, me finding things like these big old coconut crabs out there. And I even found some monitor lizards and kept two of them for a good while as pets as a kid, and they were kind of cool pets, but they ate way too much raw chicken, so my mom made me let them go after a while. But it was also kind of cool because it was a very neat spot of history as far as World War II went. A lot of big World War II battles happened in this area. So, and my dad was big into scuba diving. So as a young kid, I was out underwater scuba diving. And that in the background there is the propeller prop from a Japanese Zero that crash landed in the Pacific way back when. So,
Jeez.
my dad actually has a picture next to the big old gun that was mounted to the plane, and it's down there, sunk to the bottom of the ocean as well. But that's my show and tell for the day. It's just speaking of that world experiences, that different perspective, kind of helping shape you a bit. My teenage years were spent in a speck in the middle of the Pacific. Different, interesting way to grow up, but gave me a very unique perspective, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Happy to share more about that over a beer anytime anyone runs into me at an event somewhere. But little tidbits to tell people who we are. Who are the oddities behind all this knowledge that we're learning from today?
Yeah.
So, perfect. Show and tell. Checkbox. Another one down. Let's jump into Agentic AI, which is what we're here to talk about anyway, right? To start there, and I'll point out on your LinkedIn profile, you have one of the first things that it says on your little tagline there is it a prompt expert, right?
AI prompt expert. So I did that years ago, and I haven't taken it down and everything else. But probably around the time that ChatGPT was starting to become a little bit out in the open, it wasn't quite popularized like it was yet.
Right, right.
I saw that, I had been prompting for a significant amount of times. And prompting is a hard thing to do, Josh, because
Yeah.
90% of people think of it as a Google search and they just don't do it right. And when they don't get the right results, they think, oh, the AI is wrong. But the truth is, it's your bias and the way that you taught, or the way that you're thinking about phrasing things. That's actually the problem,
Right.
that you're not getting the right results out of the large language model or whatever AI agent that you're using.
Yeah.
And that was just sort of to point out to people that were jumping into ChatGPT and everything else. There's places that you can go, and I think a prompt expert is still a job that a lot of people are going to need inside of an organization, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
And even though the language models are getting much better, those people of our generation are still in that Google search mindset and not into the idea of how to actually format a prompt so that you get it back.
Right.
When
Of course.
the early days of Copilot, I tell people this story. The early days of Copilot, I would do things here at Microsoft. It wasn't released yet, but we had access to it, and we would use it as employees.
Dog food.
And I would do things. Yeah, but I would do things inside of Copilot, and then a week later, that same prompt wouldn't work. And it was like, why? And you had to decipher, and you had to go through, and you had to do things. And not only that, I mean, even there in the early days of Copilot, one of the things that Microsoft learned very early on, I might understand where a certain document lives, and I might go to a SharePoint site, lop off the end of it, and I get lucky and I find a couple of documents that maybe I didn't know that I had access to. Well, AI doesn't get lucky.
Oh, yeah. It's not how it works.
Correct. It finds it. So a lot of the security first initiatives and a lot of the things that you see Microsoft doing are as a result of even Microsoft itself finding out, geez, there's some things that really are exposed here that we have challenges with, and we have to make sure that we do it so that we inform our customers before it gets out. This is what you need to do, and you see this a lot with partners going out and doing security briefings even before they adopt AI, to make sure that they've got things in place. Like when you open a document, let's start as classified, and then we'll move backwards and tell people to go from there. So So there's a
Yeah.
lot of these things, and agentic AI is just sort of the progression of this. But the prompting expert, I still believe, is going to be a job, and
Yeah.
I wanted that as a headline inside of the LinkedIn side.
It's a good place. It's a good place to start, right? Because immediately it catches
Yeah,
people's attention and be like, "Well, this is something I need to pay attention to here."
yeah.
But you made a good point on the search engine comparison with something like Copilot. It's different. The idea, the training in our minds from having used X technology for so long is that this carries over in the same way. It looks like a search bar essentially.
Correct.
So maybe that's just what I need to do, but it's different, and you got to structure things differently. And such is the case with agentic AI versus an AI assistant, right? So maybe we could start there. You could break down what exactly is the difference with the term agentic AI versus just typing something into Copilot and asking it to do something for you.
Yeah, so the 10,000-foot view is really when AI has been built over the last couple of years, the popularized thing. They're really what are called large language models, and they're considered experts in everything because they've been trained on so many things. But this is one of the problems that you see with these all-knowing solutions is that they're very confident in the answer that they give to you, but it may not be right. But they're still very confident in the answer that they give to you. So this is what inside of AI is known as hallucinations. Basically, it's something that happens. Well, how do we reduce hallucination? Because we're going to constantly train these models on things, and it's learning not only from you, who's entering things inside of it, but it's also learning from the internet. It's learning what it thinks is right information, but it's wrong because it's actually wrong there. Or somebody thought that this was right, so they put in the answer, and now it thinks. I mean, you can train a model that 2 + 2 is 5. And it will confidently tell you every single time 2 + 2 is 5 because
But it's been told.
that's what it's been told and that's what it knows. So where does agentic AI come into? Well, instead of making, I sort of have said this on a couple of different presentations that I do. Nobody goes to college to be an expert in everything. You go to college to sort of narrow down and become, all right, I'm knowledgeable in this field. A doctor, yes, there's a general practitioner, but he's going to send you to a specialist who understands it better. And that's really where the agentic AI comes into play is these are smaller solutions. They might not know everything, but they are really, really experts in this particular topic. And when you ask it other things, it may actually give you some answers to it and stuff like that, or it may actually be trained to say, I'm not sure of that answer just because I haven't been trained on it. You may want to go find something else from it. So it's the next step from this all-knowing, hey, I want to do everything. And that's where the search to Google, to Bing, to all the different search engines comes into play because it knows everything. Now we're coming back and we're saying, hey, well, I can specialize in HR, or I can specialize in accounting, or I can specialize in these certain things, and that's where the agents come into play. And they can go as small as, hey, let's build an agent that actually builds a PO for a partner. We can do those sort of things.
It's task based as well, right? It's not
correct.
just finding information; it's then taking that and doing something additional.
Doing something, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really that sort of next step that we can have things, and you can schedule. One of the things that I actually do, and I think Microsoft is coming out with an agent for this in the future and everything, but it's that assistant that sort of is timed and scheduled. So every Monday, I actually run a prompt inside a Copilot that says, what does my week look like? And do all of my meetings align with the goals that my leadership has assigned to me for this quarter? So with that, I get an output every Monday, and I go look at it, and it says, usually it says, hey, you got a whole bunch of nonsense meetings and everything else. Well, I categorize those in my calendar as a color so that I know that if I get overbooked or I have to schedule something, that one's not as important as these other ones that align with my goals for my leadership.
Okay.
And every Friday, I actually have another prompt because this helps me build my self-appraisal every quarter that I turn in and things like that. It says, what did I accomplish this week? And there were certain things that should be pointed out as important. Now, what I can do is I can actually tag things inside of emails. I can do little sort of phrases that it picks up on and things like that, and teach, hey, this is when you see this, this is something that's important, so that it comes through in that summary of the week. Now, at
Yeah.
the end of the quarter, I really don't have to do much to sort of summarize it, because I've got weeks and weeks of things that I've accomplished, and I can sort of take those, feed that into a larger thing, and say, can you just summarize this quarter? And
Yeah.
bam, I've got my summary for the quarter already outputted, at least started, so that I can
That's a great
generate
example.
something to my
Yeah,
to my
no,
leadership.
that's a great
Yeah.
example. I mean, so going back then to the idea that these are specialized to be looking at, they do a specialized thing rather than a large general thing. What does that mean for the data that they're looking at to do this specialized stuff? And I assume then that if it's specialized and it says, okay, I don't have this very wide view, I have this more narrow specialized view, they've got to be looking at different data sets in that case, or what's the deal with that?
Correct. So when you set up agents, you're really teaching, like a Copilot agent, studio that you build agents in. You're really providing the data for that agent to make the decisions on, to set it up, and to do things. It's not going to go across your entire organization and pull things in and do things like that. You're really setting it up for, this is what I wanted to focus on, and this is where it is. Copilot chat and those things, they exist, and they'll look across your entire organization data set. But these are more focused and more sort of solution based. So you'll see these things come into Teams, come into Outlook, come into certain aspects of workflows that you go through. One of the things that I know that we use it for here at Microsoft is expenses. Expenses, it can go through and it can actually categorize expenses and look at the thing that came in. I mean, I tell some people that the expense solution here at Microsoft is unbelievable, because I charge it on the American Express that I have. It goes in, usually I'm still on the road, and it says, hey, we'll automatically submit this for you, because it's got a 100% chance of not being rejected based upon the agent that actually overviewed it and everything else. Sometimes it makes categorizing them difficult when they're separated out like that, but at least there's a date to it, and yeah, it submits it, and I didn't touch it. So that whole
I think we
thing,
could all agree that expense management is one of the
huge.
key areas we would gladly welcome an agent
Huge.
to come in and take that off our hands.
And I think Microsoft and Dynamics have done an amazing job of the solution that we have here at Microsoft, and I think that exact solution is like something that is easily seen. I mean, if it's categorized, if you see that it's a parking garage, okay, you need a receipt for that, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's not going to get auto submitted. But if you saw that I ate at McDonald's and it was $10 for the meal and everything else, it's probably just me.
Probably. We don't need to say who the guests were.
Categorize it as a personal expense. It goes in and it says, here's the expense. Would you like me to submit it? Again, I don't even need to submit the receipt, because it goes, hey, we know about this. This is fine, and we're going to go through it.
Oh my, that sounds like we're making life better already, right there.
Making it easier.
That was an amazing example. You mentioned Copilot Studio there, where you can go and build your own agents, right?
Yeah.
So as an organization starts to wrap their mind around, okay, we're taking on our Copilot strategy. It's taking shape. It's taking form. We want to get more into optimizing our workloads. We can build these agents. What are some real world examples that maybe a lot of organizations will probably want to start thinking about, from where they could get started with building agents and the low hanging fruit, if you will, right, within their org?
It's funny, because one of the things, I deal with Microsoft Teams rooms, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I actually have built is an agent where I take all of the Learn articles from Microsoft, and I take it and I build an agent saying, here's every single Learn article. I want you to absorb all of this and everything inside of this agent that we built. All right.
Okay.
And now you can query and you can say, how do I create an account from Microsoft Teams room? Well, it knows it because it's there, and it says, well, here's the PowerShell.
Learn articles.
Would you like me to write the PowerShell for you? Yes, please write me the PowerShell. Here's the name that I want. Here's the here's the attributes that I want it to have. Can you build this? And it builds it for you. I mean,
That's great.
that's an agent that you can do. I've seen other people that have done purchase orders. I've seen other people that have done invoices. You have a conversation with this agent, and you say, here's the customer that I want as a company and everything else. It's already got the logo. It knows how to output it, but you're having a conversation. Is there anything that I'm missing here? Yeah, you're missing a description of what the services were and how many days we might have performed on the, and it comes through and it makes sure that everything is filled out. Now there's other solutions that'll do this for you. So you may not want that or something like that, but I've seen people building these things so that the data is all inside of that agent. And then when they change things, you don't really have to change much. You just change the output of the agent.
Right.
And it's good.
I mean, it seems like the possibilities are endless with what agents can do and how they're going to evolve over time. But it's great to understand. I think that's the good baseline here in this conversation, right? Is that it is specialized and focused in. It's not a general query about everything in it. It is a specific purpose.
Correct. We've got that, but the agents are really more of the specialized side that you're gonna do things with.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're going to pause, rest from this topic, and rant a bit, because that is the second thing that I like, that we take a break from our topic to be humans once again, and ranting is part of humanity, in my opinion. And I mean, you're from New Jersey, so it's just kind of a part of, it's hand in hand with breathing, right?
That's
it's
what I did.
ranting. So that's but you actually brought the rant today, which I love. So what do you have on the rant side? What just,
I did. There's some people that know that this is one of my rants that I go into and things like that. So, dealing with Microsoft, we all have test tenants, Josh. And we have these test tenants where we put our devices in and we make sure that we know what we're doing. And it's the tenant that we can sort of go in, play around. And if something doesn't work, okay, we reset the tenant and we're not, we're not too deep into it and things like that. But the challenge that I have is the message center side of those tenants. Because, Josh, Message Center from Microsoft and Tom Arbanoff, there's so many other guys that know about this. And I had a meeting about it this morning. So I started to, before we recorded, Josh, I started my rant. And he goes, okay, you can do that rant. Message Center. So there's so many messages in Message Center that Microsoft as a company has decided, all right, we're only going to target the messages if you have something relevant to that message itself. So I'll give you a product, right? Microsoft Teams panels. They sit outside of the room. They give you the schedule. They give all that, right? Yeah. A lot of people in their demo tenant may not have Teams panels, which means that you don't get a message center post that is targeted towards your tenant. Now, it's not only that you don't get it. Even if you search that ID, you won't find it because it's not in that tenant.
Not relevant to you.
Correct. If I'm searching for it, I obviously want to know what that ID is because I know about that ID and I just want to see it and everything else. So my rant.
Stop holding back on me.
My rant is and I know why they do this. I know why they do this because, Josh, the amount of messages in Message Center that are actually generated every single day are unbelievable. Nobody wants to see everything. But when I search, my rant is towards the search. When I search, give me the information, John.
Right? It sounds like there maybe should be an agent gating all those that can help you out.
Isn't that a use for a Copilot? Can't we have a Message Center Copilot that can go? I mean, it's like it wrote itself, Josh.
I know. It's such talk about low hanging fruit right there.
Right? Oh. Right? I know. So that's my rant. Again, I work for Microsoft, so this is a personal side. This is not on the company itself. I'm not here to sort of say that we're doing this or not doing this and everything else. Just a little disclaimer there.
We're coming up with good ideas, just in a very passionate way. Is all. That's it. I mean, you almost got me started on another rant when you brought up expense management. I'm just like, my gosh, but I won't even go there.
Have that thing. Microsoft actually, I will say this: Microsoft has done an amazing job inside of the expenses that we go through to make sure that they're aligned, they're in compliance with everything that we do, and it's easy. and it's easy. That's the thing.
That's the key.
I've worked for other companies, yes, and doing expenses is a time-consuming and tedious task, and Microsoft has really done a really good job internally.
I won't comment on my own thoughts and opinions on expense management at my current place. I love them. Great place.
Absolutely.
But man, expense management sucks. So, all right, cool. So that was our rant. Good one.
Yeah.
Good one. I'm fully on board with you there.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up the Agentic AI talk with a question, your opinion really on this, because this is one of those things that could be largely debated or gone in circles about. But I want to get your unique take on it. And that is, the general idea of AI is coming for my job, right? And on some levels you can say, well, okay, we can see how it might replace some, but just if you know how to use it, you're in good. There's a lot of different debates there. But specifically when it comes to agents, there's been more conversation around that because it's like, well, hey, these things are getting smarter, more specialized. They can do more complex tasks. Are they gonna? So the question there is, how do you view the likelihood or the situation unfolding with agents replacing jobs by the thousands out there?
I don't know that it replaces jobs by the thousands, but I think that there are roles that AI can do that may just not be something that okay, we need skills to do this or anything else. It can do this. I mean, even if we think about robotics and things like that, I mean, some of that might be, I watch different roles that say, hey, I don't want AI, they have unions and we don't want AI to replace our jobs, so they block it.
Right.
Now, is that a good thing to do? Probably not, because we can lower the cost on goods. We can lower do things.
Yeah.
But I also look at it and I say, hey, there's a place for that, because in robotics, okay, the robots are there, but you're going to have to maintain those robots. You're going to have to go and make sure that they're, when they break, who services them and everything else. So I think there's things that AI will come in and might do for people, but I also think that opens up new roles for other solutions that come in. I
think you're right there. I think it does, and I think as AI takes over more positions like that, I think that it's going to be hugely important for society to weave human oversight and elements and influence all throughout the processes and tasks that AI is fully automated on. And that in itself is going to be a new type of role and various levels. I think a lot will come from that. But to what you brought up about robotics, right? It's like, hey, robotics are doing things that were very manual, tedious jobs earlier on. And while one company may have said, we're blocking that to preserve jobs, other company came along and said, well, we're offering the same product for less because we're not blocking it. And then first company goes out of business, right? Yeah. So
taxis. Think about taxis and robo taxis that are coming and self-driving vehicles and things like that. I mean, it's amazing what's happening and the future. I mean, I was there for the birth of the internet. I mean, that's the generation that I'm in. I watched companies go through the dot-com bubble and go through everything. I watched people say that the internet, well, it's a great idea, it'll never happen. I watched the doubters of all of that, and as much as I'd love to say, hey, there's a world where AI doesn't exist. That's not a reality. That's not a reality. So I think that the people that will flourish in the next generation of working and things like that, they're going to understand AI. They might not have the jobs they might not be going into the jobs that AI is replacing, but they're going to surround AI, and they're going to make sure that this is happening. And I mean, there's people that see in the future that we're much more consumers of goods, and the goods are actually much more plentiful. We can wipe out hunger. We can do things because we're not reliant on human beings to do everything.
Right.
And that's kind of where some of this stuff goes. And okay, but what happens? I don't think society goes away. I just think it's a new way of doing things. I mean, Josh, I can't tell you how great it is to have Amazon come to my door every single day with something that I ordered. I don't have to go to the mall. I don't have to, there's a generation of people that grew up without malls. My generation wasn't one of them. I hated going to malls. When I had to shop for clothes, it was like, all right, we're going to take one day a month and we're going to go buy everything that we do. Now I can buy a shirt and it's here the next day in the morning.
And we take these incremental changes for granted, but
Correct.
if you think back to how did we do that thing before malls
Correct.
came around, before Amazon started delivering every day, think about what that was like. It's a change. It's a
Everybody
progression, you
correct.
know?
Everybody resists change because we like what we're used to and we know
Yeah.
what we're used to. But AI is no different. The change
Yeah.
is coming
Yeah.
and it's going through. One of the things I saw posted on LinkedIn the other day, I think it was a Microsoft employee, or it might have been an MVP. I forget which one. But he was talking about he was going to go to his parents' 55 and older community, and he was
Ah.
going to talk and he was going to show Copilot just for companionship.
Ah.
Because one of the things that happens as you're older and everything else, you have less friends surrounding you and things
Yeah.
like that. And loneliness is a significant
Big problem.
opportunity inside of elder communities. So what he did was he takes his phone and he just goes in and he shows how you talk to somebody and how it creates a little bit of companionship. So while we talk about AI and jobs and things like that, there really is a cultural shift that we have to do as well, because Josh, when you're
Absolutely.
picking up a phone and you're talking to somebody, that may not be an entity. And
Right.
even if we think about,
And it's going to be harder to tell the difference.
well, think about this. Think about some of the AI that's going on Facebook now. How does
Yeah.
Facebook make money? Well, they make money through engagements because advertisers are paying for engagements. So how many of those identities on Facebook are real, or they're not
Yeah.
real, or are people created? I can have AI create a person. I can have AI go on vacation and post photos. I can have AI eat at a restaurant and post a video about what great food it is and everything else. That's creating
Crazy.
engagements for
I
all
know.
of this. Now,
Yeah.
are we taking away somebody's influencer side of things and everything else? No.
Right.
But is it a real person? Do we know? I mean, those lines are going to start to bleed blurred a little bit. Even when you
They are.
pick up a phone to call a call center, I might get away with an 80% on an AI basis of just talking you through things. We've already been there with call centers. Press
Yeah, that's
one
been
to
around. That's
press
a long
one to
running
do this.
example.
Correct. Press two to do this. So you can see now we're just getting a more human approach to even those side of things. So
I think
it'll be
you know,
interesting.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be, yes, some things are going to end up becoming less of actual jobs as we realize it can be automated in X, Y, and Z ways. But being flourishing in the future is going to involve skilling up and preparing yourself for those
Correct.
changes. And so, as along those lines, in the spirit of that, as we wrap up this show, which thank you again for being my fourth guest host. This is awesome. But as we wrap it up, where should people go when they're like, all right, I want to skill up. I want to stay up to date. You seem like a smart guy in this space. I think I want to follow you and keep up to date. Where would you tell them to go?
So if you want to follow me, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I do post a lot of things on LinkedIn. Most of it is surrounding Microsoft Teams rooms, but there's a lot around AI as well, with Copilot and things like that. You got to start. I mean, one of the things that I talk to everybody is just jump in, and Copilot
Gotta
is
start.
Copilot is a free download, and you can start to talk to Copilot. If you rather ChatGPT, download ChatGPT and start talking to it. One of the things that I saw the other day was that on X, they actually have an AI agent called Grok that they use,
Yeah.
and they showed Grok Einstein's famous blackboard. And if you don't think this was mind blowing to me. They showed his blackboard where he came up with the theory of relativity and all the different things that he had to do to come up with the equation of E equals mc squared, and how he thought it out. And Grok actually found some mistakes. And
Oh, that's trippy.
said this is more efficient if we do it this way and things like that. So while you think about some of the smartest people in the world, some of this actually has the capability of advancing even things that are proven as what we
Right.
believe true, might actually be refined and be more efficient with the help of an artificial intelligence solution. And like I said, you have to start. So one of the things that I tell everybody, and I do this on a lot of my speeches for Microsoft. I have an iPhone. I have a button on the side, on the control button. I map that to Copilot, and that automatically launches Copilot,
Pro
and
tip.
it says, what can I help you with, and things like that. And I go into a conversation. That whole conversation is transcribed, and as that solution is talking to me, and I talk to it, it begins to understand. I want directions. I want food recommendations, or can you give me exercises to do today? I have a rowing machine. I have a bicycle. I want an exercise plan. As I start to talk to it, it understands my life. It understands what I'm doing, and it can give more personalized answers to what I do. But you have to start.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you have an iPhone, I know a lot of people have the iPhone. Just download the free app, even on Copilot, and start. Like I said, if you want ChatGPT, if you want Grok, if you want all these other things, they're out there. Start with one. If you don't like that, maybe move to another one and see it. We're in the early days. I likened it a lot to the internet and people back in the 90s of starting the internet. We're in the very early days of this, and some of these things may not be there. If you think back to even search engines in the 90s, we had Ask Jeeves, we had DuckDuckGo, we had Google and Yahoo and Bing and all of the different solutions that we had for even searching that were different.
Right.
And then a couple of winners came out of that. And we're in the early days of if you remember, pets.com was actually a .com entity that was very big. And again, with Amazon, with things, we saw who won and who came out of that era. And I think we'll see that with AI as well.
I think we will. And I like that's the quote right there. I think of the show. You just got to start. So that's beautifully put. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
Awesome. If you're still around with us, make sure you tune in to episode 5. That will be posted up probably next week. I say this is a weekly show, and I'm going to attach an ish to the end of that weekly because, things get busy. So, but thank you for tuning in today, and I look forward to y'all joining us on the next Cutting Through the Noise.